Good afternoon. Today, I, Dr. Valerie Pratt, and my colleague, Dr. Evelyn Mentari, of FDA's Office of Non-Prescription Drugs, will discuss FDA-initiated administrative orders for safety issues and the over-the-counter or OTC Monograph Reform provisions in the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act. On March 27, 2020, the President signed into law PL 116-136, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act. The CARES Act includes important statutory provisions that reform and modernize the way over-the-counter or OTC monograph drugs are regulated in the United States. For simplicity, we will refer to the regulatory framework under the CARES Act as OTC Monograph Reform throughout this presentation. Today, FDA will provide an overview of non-prescription drugs, provide an overview of OTC Monograph Reform, discuss how FDA identifies, evaluates, and responds to safety issues, including for OTC monograph drugs, provide an overview of FDA-initiated administrative orders to address safety issues, and provide an overview of OTC monographs at FDA and comment submission. Over-the-counter drugs, which are also known as OTC or non-prescription drugs, play an increasingly vital role in America's healthcare system. When marketed in compliance with relevant requirements, non-prescription drugs are safe and effective for use by the general public without seeking treatment by a healthcare practitioner. OTC drugs should have low misuse and abuse potential. They are indicated for self-diagnosable medical conditions. Using information provided in the drug facts label, consumers should be able to self-select, self-treat, and self-administer the medication for the condition. There are two ways to bring an OTC drug to market in the United States: the New Drug Application and Abbreviated New Drug Application, also known as NDA and ANDA process, and the OTC Monograph process. These processes are quite different. The NDA process is how prescription drugs also come to market. It requires a drug application be submitted to FDA for approval. Drugs marketed under the OTC Drug Review are referred to as OTC monograph drugs. The OTC Drug Review establishes OTC monographs, which set out conditions, including active ingredients, under which an OTC drug is considered generally recognized as safe and effective, or GRACE, and does not require FDA approval prior to marketing. In contrast to the NDA process, an OTC monograph drug can be marketed without FDA approval if the drug product complies with the statutory requirements in 505G of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and regulatory requirements, including its therapeutic category specific OTC monograph. Today's focus is on OTC monograph drugs. So what is an OTC monograph? An OTC monograph is a kind of rulebook of conditions for each therapeutic category that describes, for example, the active ingredients, uses, doses, routes of administration, labeling, and testing for an OTC drug to be considered generally recognized as safe and effective, or GRACE. Drugs that are GRACE and meet other requirements in Section 505G of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act can be marketed without a new drug application and FDA pre-market approval. The monograph system remains one of the largest and most complex regulatory programs ever undertaken at FDA. More than 100,000 OTC drug products are marketed in the U.S. under OTC monographs. These OTC monographs or rulebooks include approximately 800 active ingredients for more than 1,400 different uses. The next question you may ask is, why was the monograph system established and how was it developed? In brief, in 1962, Kefauver-Harris Amendment required drugs to be effective via new drug application. This presented a challenge as to how to review safety and efficacy data from the more than 100,000 OTC drug products already on the market. In 1972, nearly 50 years ago, the OTC Drug Review was established as a way to review the safety and effectiveness of all OTC drugs without undertaking separate review of each one to determine whether they needed to submit a separate new drug application to the FDA. Expert panels reviewed therapeutic categories for drugs for safety and efficacy, focusing on active ingredients. The OTC Drug Review established conditions for OTC therapeutic drug classes in the form of OTC Monograph regulations, but required a multi-phase public rulemaking process to establish or revise an OTC monograph. This multi-step process, which I will discuss on the next slide, was in effect until the passage of the CARES Act in March 2020. While there were many positive aspects of the original OTC Drug Review, and the system worked well for many years, more recently, a number of challenges became apparent, especially when dealing with OTC monograph drug safety issues. Process weaknesses, including the burdensome multi-step rulemaking process, made it challenging for FDA to establish or amend monograph regulations. Furthermore, FDA did not have adequate resources to devote to the OTC drug review process. These process weaknesses resulted in delays in FDA finalizing the monograph regulations and ability to address urgent safety issues due to the need for rulemaking to make any changes to the monograph regulations, even those that were safety related. OTC Monograph Reform improves the process by replacing monograph rulemaking with a new administrative order process to improve efficiency, timeliness, and predictability. This new process allows innovation and safety issues to be addressed more rapidly. The CARES Act finalized the status of drugs containing certain ingredients that have been pending for years and allows FDA to more rapidly address safety issues that arise. First and foremost, OTC Monograph Reform changes the process for issuing, amending, and finalizing OTC monographs from the multi-phase public notice and comment rulemaking process to a new administrative order process. The administrative order process still involves public comment. OTC Monograph Reform gives FDA the authority to issue administrative orders that add, remove, or change grace conditions for an OTC drug monograph. This administrative order process can be initiated by either industry or FDA. Additionally, FDA now has an expedited process to address certain safety issues. For industry-initiated orders, the process begins when the requester submits an OTC Monograph Order Request, or OMOR, to FDA. FDA will determine if the application is sufficiently complete for review and file, or refuse to file the OMOR. If FDA accepts the OMOR for filing, FDA will review the OMOR and issue a proposed order. A 45-day public comment period begins when FDA issues the proposed order. After reviewing and considering the comments, FDA will issue a final order. For FDA-initiated orders, the process begins when FDA issues a proposed order or an interim final order under expedited procedure. The process continues in a similar manner as the industry-initiated order, with a public comment period followed by a final order. For both FDA-initiated and industry-initiated orders, there will be an opportunity for comment, dispute resolution, administrative hearing, and judicial review. Now my colleague, Dr. Evelyn Mentari, will discuss how FDA initiates an order.
Thank you, Valerie, for that kind introduction. As I continue this webinar, I'll start by discussing FDA actions in the interest of drug safety. Science constantly evolves. FDA is constantly evaluating the safety of drugs, including those brought to market through the over-the-counter monograph process. This involves identifying, tracking, evaluating, and responding to safety issues. In FDA's work to identify safety issues, potential risks associated with drugs are identified from various sources, including published medical journals, media reports, reports from foreign regulatory agencies, required safety reporting from responsible persons for the non-prescription drug or related prescription drug, the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System, or FAERS, which is a database containing adverse event reports, medication error reports, and product quality complaints that were submitted to FDA, and citizen petitions. In April 2020, FDA introduced a new process for identifying, evaluating, and responding to newly identified safety signals. In this process, FDA prioritizes newly identified safety signals based on severity. They are categorized as a potential risk, an important potential risk, or an emergency. FDA may consider one or more of the following activities, among others, to evaluate a safety issue. FDA may complete a full review of data from the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System, or FAERS, complete a substantial literature review, request a new site inspection, request new product testing, or review clinical trial data. The evaluation of safety issues is the same for monograph and NDA drugs. However, the tools to address safety issues differ between the monograph and NDA regulatory processes. Monograph Reform has added new tools to address monograph drug safety issues, and this will be the focus of the rest of the presentation. FDA can now address an OTC monograph safety issue by initiating the administrative order process. For example, FDA may change labeling language that is included in the drug facts label, or DFL. FDA may issue certain administrative orders with packaging requirements to encourage use in accordance with labeling. And in certain circumstances, FDA may expedite the administrative order process. In addition to the standard administrative order process, there are also expedited procedures. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, can issue an interim final administrative order when the HHS Secretary determines that a drug, class of drugs, or combination of drugs poses an imminent hazard to the public health. FDA can issue an interim administrative order when it determines that a change in the labeling of a drug, class of drugs, or combination of drugs is reasonably expected to mitigate a significant or unreasonable risk of a serious adverse event associated with use of the drug. A standard administrative order process involves public comment, followed by issuance of a final order. A final administrative order becomes effective once the time for requesting judicial review has expired. By comparison, when FDA initiates an urgent safety order on an expedited basis, FDA will issue an interim final order before the public has an opportunity to comment. The interim final order becomes effective on a date specified by FDA or by the HHS Secretary. There will still be an opportunity for comment, dispute resolution, and a hearing, as well as judicial review, but this is expected to occur after the interim final order goes into effect. FDA will issue a final order after taking into account public comment. The FDA-initiated administrative order process for a safety-related condition, starts with the evaluation of the safety issue and development of the proposed order. Subsequent steps in the process are illustrated in this helpful graphic. For FDA-initiated administrative orders, FDA makes a reasonable effort to informally notify sponsors who have a listing in effect under Section 510, paragraph J, for a covered drug or combination of drugs no later than 2 business days before the issuance of a proposed order, or 48 hours before the issuance of an interim final order. FDA then issues the proposed order or interim final order under expedited procedure, along with its reasons for the order, and publishes a notice of availability in the Federal Register. A 45-day comment period generally follows the issuance of the proposed order. However, there is an exception. When FDA issues a proposed order proposing that a drug covered in Section 505G, paragraph A3, that is generally a pre-existing Category 3 drug, is not generally recognized as safe and effective, or GRACE, FDA must include notice of the general categories of data FDA has determined to be necessary to establish that the drug is GRACE and the format for submissions. FDA must also provide for a comment period of at least 180 calendar days unless FDA determines for good cause that a shorter period is in the interest of public health. After assessing the public comments, FDA issues the final order along with its reasons. For use with FDA-initiated or industry-initiated administrative orders, FDA developed OTC Monographs at FDA, a public web-based portal that allows the public to view proposed and final administrative orders and supporting documents, and submit comments, including data, to proposed administrative orders. In the future, the public will also be able to search or browse a repository of final OTC Monograph orders. A two-phase rollout of OTC Monographs at FDA is planned. The interim or transitional system will be released first. It will have limited capabilities and content to view proposed and final orders and supporting documents, as well as to submit comments and data. The final system is expected in 2022 and will have enhanced search capabilities and content. The public can also learn about upcoming FDA activities in the annual FDA forecast. Each year, FDA will publish a non-binding listing of OTC Monograph issues that FDA intends to address in the coming 3 years, including safety labeling changes. Because safety issues often need urgent action, FDA may issue safety orders in between annual forecasts. Thus, a safety order may not appear on an annual forecast before issuance of the order. For issues that FDA anticipates the submission of data will likely be needed, FDA will include a date by which it will expect these data to be submitted. FDA will publish the first forecast by October 1st, 2021, and FDA will publish subsequent forecasts no less frequently than annually. This slide lists contact information and available resources. Thank you for tuning into our webinar about FDA-initiated administrative orders for safety issues. We appreciate your time and attention. We will now take a brief break and then return to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers for those great presentations. If you haven't had a chance to enter your questions into the Q&A chat pod, please do so now. Looks like we have a few questions coming in, and the first question will be directed to Dr. Mentari. Can we get examples of the types of risks?
Hi, thank you very much for that question. Appreciate your interest. One source that can list the types of risks that FDA commonly evaluates is the NIST map, and the URL for the NIST map is provided on slide 13. And in consulting the NIST map, there are certain examples that are listed, and types of risks that FDA commonly evaluates include serious adverse events, medication errors, adverse events that suggest therapeutic inequivalence or product quality issues. Also, we commonly evaluate product quality issues that could negatively affect the public health or the risk-benefit profile of a product. And we also evaluate issues that cannot be resolved through existing routine processes. And just to give you some additional detail on the types of serious adverse events and the definition of that term, serious adverse events are events that may result in death, disability, inpatient hospitalization, a life-threatening experience, a congenital anomaly or birth defect, or something that requires medical or surgical intervention to prevent one of these outcomes.
Thank you for responding to that question. Our next question goes to Dr. Mentari. When will FDA final orders be posted?
Thank you. To repeat the question is where will FDA final orders be posted? Orders will be posted on FDA's website, and in addition, FDA will also publish a notice of availability in the Federal Register.
Thank you for responding to that question. Our next question also goes to Dr. Mentari. Is there any guidance available on what the characteristics are of something that would go through the expedited process?
Thank you for the question. There is no guidance. However, Section 505G, paragraph B4 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act explains when FDA can use expedited procedures.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. For the time being, is there any searchable database for OTC monographs?
Until the FDA publishes deemed final orders, manufacturers can refer to the monographs as published in the Code of Federal Regulations. There is no searchable database.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. Will there be a separate webinar to address OTC fee implementation?
FDA intends to have a separate webinar on fees in the future.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. How does the CARES Act reform the OTC drug review?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. How does the CARES Act reform the OTC drug review?
The CARES Act provides the FDA with a new tool in its regulatory toolbox. It allows us to issue proposed administrative orders in scenarios relevant to today's discussion for safety issues when a change as described on today's slides indicates that regulatory action for a safety issue is necessary.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. Why did the OTC drug review need to be reformed?
Thanks for that question. Despite FDA's successes in providing consumers with access to a wide variety of safe and effective OTC monograph drugs, there were challenges with the nearly 50-year-old OTC drug review. The biggest challenges of the OTC drug review prior to the CARES Act included burdensome multi-step rulemakings to establish or amend monographs. Also, FDA lacked adequate resources to devote to rulemaking process. There are also delays in finalizing monographs and responding to safety issues. And it was a limited, burdensome process for innovation, such as new combinations of ingredients or new dosage forms.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. What will OTC monograph reform provisions in the CARES Act accomplish?
Thank you. There are a number of improvements that we expect. We expect that OTC monograph reform will improve the overall process by replacing rulemaking with administrative orders. Also, we expect that it will improve efficiency, timeliness, and predictability, and facilitate innovation. We anticipate that it will establish a process to rapidly address safety issues. And we also expect that OTC monograph reform will finalize pending monographs and provide FDA with user fees to support OTC monograph drug activities.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. Are administrative orders publicly available?
That's a great question. As FDA issues each proposed or final administrative order, FDA will publish the order on FDA's public website, OTC Monographs at FDA. In addition, FDA will publish a notice of availability of each proposed and interim final administrative order in the Federal Register.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. Where can we see the FDA forecast once it is issued in October? Is there a link to this slide?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. This is directed to Dr. Pratt. Where can we see the FDA forecast once it is issued in October? Is there a link in this slide?
The forecast will be published on the same OTC Monograph website. We intend this website to be one-stop shopping for all things Monograph.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. Can the public comment on proposed administrative orders, and if so, how?
Yes, after issuance of a proposed administrative order, there will be a public comment period of at least 45 calendar days in most cases.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. What is the OTC monographs at FDA?
OTC Monographs at FDA will provide the public with the ability to search for proposed and final administrative orders that add, remove, or change conditions for an OTC drug monograph. OTC Monographs at FDA will also provide the public with an opportunity to submit comments and data to proposed administrative orders. Assuming appropriate funding, FDA anticipates rolling out OTC Monographs at FDA in the fiscal year of 2021, and an update with enhanced capabilities and content is expected in 2022.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. Will all monograph drugs be reviewed?
Thank you for that question. On approximately October 1st of each year, FDA will publish a forecast of monograph activities that FDA expects to act on in the ensuing 3 years. FDA will publish the first forecast by October 1st, 2021, and this forecast will be provided on the OTC Monograph Reform in the CARES Act webpage. So this is an excellent source for you to see the plans, including what monograph drugs will be evaluated.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. When is phase 1 of the rollout for OTC monographs at FDA expected to occur?
Thank you. Assuming appropriate funding, FDA anticipates rolling out OTC monographs at FDA in fiscal year 2021. And we expect to have an update with enhanced capabilities in 2022.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. Can you please repeat the length of time between each step of the FDA-initiated proposed order process?
Thank you for that question. As some of you may have noticed, some timelines for the process are described on slide 19 of the presentation. There was a section that was not included on the slide itself, but was included in the discussion that I'll go ahead and repeat. So if you could refer to slide 19 to follow along, the FDA-initiated administrative order process for safety-related conditions starts with the evaluation of the safety issue and development of the proposed order. For FDA-initiated administrative orders, FDA makes a reasonable effort to informally notify sponsors who have a listing in effect under Section 510J for a covered drug or combination of drugs no later than 2 business days before the issuance of a proposed order or 48 hours before the issuance of an interim final order. FDA then issues the proposed order or interim final order under the expedited procedure along with its reasons for the order and publishes a notice of availability in the Federal Register. A 45-day comment period generally follows issuance of the proposed order. However, there is an exception. When FDA issues a proposed order proposing that a drug covered in Section 505G, paragraph A3, i.e. generally a pre-existing Category 3 drug, is not generally recognized as safe and effective or GRACE, FDA must include notice of the general categories of data FDA has determined to be necessary to establish that the drug is GRACE and that the format for submission. FDA must also provide for a comment period of at least 180 calendar days in this case, unless FDA determines for good cause that a shorter period is in the interest of public health.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. Is there an FDA guidance for content and format of an industry-initiated administrative order?
FDA will be issuing a guidance on industry, content, and format for OMOR submissions in the future.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question will go to Dr. Pratt. Will comments and supporting data provided to FDA for a proposed order be public?
Yes, public comments and data submitted to the proposed orders will be public.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question also goes to Dr. Pratt. In addition to an email for accepting public comments, can FDA open a public docket so that the public can see what other comments have been submitted to FDA?
The FDA website will allow the public to see comments submitted by others, but it will be much more user-friendly than dockets. We do not anticipate using dockets for monographs once the Monograph IT system is fully functional.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question will go to Dr. Mentari. Will final labeling for GRAS monograph ingredients still be published in the CFR?
Thank you. That's a great question. Final labeling for GRACE monograph ingredients will be published in final orders on the FDA website, and monographs will be withdrawn from the CFR.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. Are there new methods for adverse events safety monitoring in the CARES Act?
Thank you. Safety is monitored in the exact same way for OTC Monograph products and NDA application products before and after the CARES Act. The tools that FDA has to address safety issues differ with the CARES Act.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question also goes to Dr. Mentari. When can FDA expedite an administrative order?
Thank you. This is a topic that was discussed on slide 17 of the presentation. The procedure for FDA to initiate an administrative order can be expedited when FDA determines a drug poses an imminent hazard to the public health, or a change in labeling of a drug, class of drugs, or combination of drugs is reasonably expected to mitigate a significant or unreasonable risk of a serious adverse event associated with use of the drug.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. Can you provide additional information regarding timelines for FDA-initiated administrative orders?
Some timelines for the process are described in slide 19 of the presentation. While the AMUFA goals document doesn't establish timelines for FDA-initiated administrative orders, in general, FDA intends to follow similar timelines for safety orders as for the industry-initiated OMORs. The timelines for industry-initiated OMORs are described in the AMUFA goals document, and a link to this document can be found on the OTC Monograph Reform in the CARES Act website.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Pratt. What will be the best way to find out when the OTC Monographs at FDA portal will be available?
When the OTC Monographs at FDA portal is available, this information will be provided on the OTC Monograph Reform in the CARES Act website. We recommend that you check this website.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is directed to Dr. Mentari. How will the provision of the CARES Act impact currently marketed OTC drugs?
Thank you for this question. To answer this question, I'd like to direct you to an excellent resource, which is our first webinar on OTC Monograph Reform that was presented by Dr. Terry Michelle. This webinar discusses the impact on currently marketed OTC drugs.
Thank you for responding to that question. It looks like we have time for just one more question, and our last question is addressed to Dr. Mentari. How long will OTC Monograph Reform take to implement fully?
Thank you. This is an excellent question. I'd like to direct you to a resource for this question as well. The timelines that FDA agreed to in the OTC Monograph User Fee Program performance goals and procedures lays out a 5-year implementation timeline. So this would be a good place to look.
And thank you to all of our presenters for your very informative and timely talk, and also for responding to the questions that came in. A few closing reminders. This activity is eligible for an attendance certificate to support continuing education by SOCRA, RAPS, SQA, and ACRP. Please refer to our website at fda.gov/CDER SBIA for more details. You'll be able to obtain the attendance certificate only on completion of the survey, which will be open for 2 weeks, and that's February the 10th. Let us know your comments and feedback via the survey. This will provide us with ideas for future improvements. On behalf of CDER Small Business and Industry Assistance, we hope you enjoyed today's presentation and found it helpful. We look forward to your presence at future webinars, which will be advertised on our website at